Hello everybody, this is a weird video, but I wanted to revamp this Plus channel. I don't really want to do any heavily edited or scripted content. I want this channel to just be kind of like a conversation, a chat I'd have with someone on a voice call, for example. And I wanted to show off how the AE pipe randomizer, Wrong Warp, the one I just released, works and how I developed it. What I want to show first is the proof of concept version I made. This is one I threw together in I think about a couple hours, just to test the idea with just entities. I didn't have any other map pack, it was literally just Mari0, and it only worked with actual pipe entities. So all this does is, well, it makes them visible in the editor because you can't really tell what's an enterable pipe and what isn't. That's not a problem in my version. But yeah, this was a little concept I made. You can see it's not quite as seamless, the pipes don't work properly. But yeah, that was just kind of like the proof of concept to see if I could do it. I knew that I wanted the pipes to be both enterable and exitable, so that means they're both an entrance and an exit, which is something the game doesn't really have, except for linked pipes. Linked pipes have that. And I knew that I wanted it to support multiple map packs, which meant I needed a way to determine... Oh yeah, and I forgot, sorry about that. I wanted to work with tiles, not entities, so any pipe could be entered regardless of if it had an entity on it or not. So any pipe could be enterable. Let me just run through the process of how it works and how it creates all of the pipes, because I think that's really interesting. But most of my mods, I like to keep things really simple. So everything in this new file called Pipe Randomizer, this is all the new functions. And then I only edit existing functions or call new functions from existing files. And that just makes it easy. It means that basically everything I need is on one place, and I can always search up additional things in this file to see where they're called elsewhere. The first thing it does is, so what happens is when you load a map pack, if it is different to an existing map pack, because what it does is it keeps one map permanently loaded, all those pipes permanently loaded. So if you exit out of the map pack and go back in, the pipes don't reset. In order to reset the pipes, you have to play a different map pack and go back. This just means that if you run out of lives, for example, I did enable infinite lives, but in case you turn that off for some reason, you won't lose your pipes. You won't lose that seed. One thing I do want to add in a future update is a way to save seeds so that you can play the same version again if you find a really interesting one. But yeah, it calls this function and it's basically saying, is the map name for the currently loaded pipes the same? If it is, return. We don't need to generate any new pipes. If it's not, then great, we can start loading new pipes. So by default, it works with all SMB tiles. So SMB tiles is fully supported at a base level. And that's why I said over 20 map packs. I don't know what it is on the post, but over 20 map packs. Because any map packs that just use SMB tiles are supported just because I support SMB. So it could be more. It all depends on what tiles people use. If they make their own, of course it's not going to be fully supported. So that's why it's a bit vague. But you can actually do your own custom tiles, and that's what I mentioned on the post. And it's literally just loading the file, and I have this compatibility function. This is how all of the maps work. It checks the map pack name, and then it just returns a list of tiles. And I had to do all of this myself, and it was not fun. But literally all it does is it just returns this if there's custom pipes. It just returns the custom tiles if there's custom tiles. So that's kind of how that works. And then all it does is it goes to every single file in the main directory and says, is this a level? And the easiest way to check that is with a regex. A regex is a regular expression. Lua doesn't have regular expressions. They have their own pattern matching system. So this is kind of like regex, but for Lua. It's custom thing. It took me a little bit to sort out, but this is the one I landed on, and it just checks for any level. So it could be 1-1 or 1-2_3 for sublevels. And it even supports like letter worlds, like M1 for minus world. And then yeah, it gets the world, level, and sublevel, and then it loads that file. And this basically does what the load map file does for regular maps. You know how it has to load from the file all the tiles, all the background tiles, all the entities, all the settings. All of that's in one massive text file. First off, there are several ways you can get the height of a level. I don't know why I did this originally, but yeah. There's sometimes a height folder. It could have a height parameter, otherwise it's just defaults to 15. It's really weird, but I just copied this from another function. It's not a big deal. And then this is stupidly simple. We're just getting every single tile. We're working out the X and Y. Basically, it's really weird to explain, but they store the height and width of the level. I don't even think they store the width. They just store the height. And then it works out the width from the amount of data it has for the tiles. It's stupidly weird, but what it means is that this is the width. This is all of the indexes for the tiles. This gets the map data, basically. R1 is the tile. If it's a background tile, it'll be something like the index and then like a little squiggle line and then the background tile. So this here, all that does is account for that and gets us the regular tile. Boom, we have the tile ID. And yeah, and then you can get the direction from that. I have this function called isPipe, and all this does is it looks at that index and goes, is this a specific pipe? Stupidly simple. We check the compatibility so we get any additional tiles, and then it's simply a case of, is this one of the default tiles or is it one of the custom tiles? And then it returns the specific direction. So this is how we're able to enter from different directions. Stupidly easy. And then if it is a pipe, it has a direction, then boom, we can add a pipe. And adding a pipe is as simple as creating an index in a list called PR_pipes. So this is all of the pipes. We have a pipe count, and that allows me to determine if it's an even or odd number of pipes, because if it's odd, then we're going to have one pipe that doesn't work, and I need to make sure that works properly. So that's why I've got that. And then the IDs allow us to quickly convert from indexes in the list to an ID which can be generated from the map, because the map isn't going to know, yes, this is a pipe tile at this specific index. So what we have to do is we have to have the index of world level sub XY. And this just allows us to easily index in that list using actual data. But then what's the point in trying to get all that data again when you can just store the index somewhere and then you can get it from there easily. So that stores all of the data at the index, so the world level sub XY, and also stores where they entered and where they exited. And exit is stupidly simple. If you go enter down it, you go up it. If you enter left, you go right. It's just the inverse. And then in the actual code, I'm going to copy this create pipe function here. And we're going to look at that. So this is the actual code. This is the, oh wait, no, it isn't. This is the, this is the actual load map function I was on about before. This is what actually loads all of the map data. So what I do is pretty simple. In that main function where it jets the tiles, we check, hey, is there a direction? It's basically doing the exact same thing that our function did to create the pipe indexes. And it checks, hey, is this a pipe? Give us the direction. And I'll say, yeah, it's this direction. And then it'll use the information that it's got to get the actual pipe. And then it'll add it to the pipe spawn list. This probably isn't the best way to do it, but it's the way I did it. The reason why I wanted to store the actual X and Y position in this list is so we can access it for mazes. Mazes suck, but I have to support them. So this allows me to do that. And then later down, there's another function. This is used for entities. But yeah, all it does is it checks the position, checks if there's an index. Ooh, I hit the mic. And then it creates a pipe. And the create pipe function is stupidly easy. If the exit ID isn't 0, then create a pipe entity. We'll go over that in a second. And then for mazes, it's pretty simple. There's this massive, it's an update, and it basically works a bit like load map, but it's in the update. It's really weird. Mazes suck. But all I do is I check the repeat X, and I create it if yeah, it's correct. Anyway, yeah, so it creates a pipe. Now, this create pipe function here creates a pipe entity. There's a pipe entity, and this is what's used internally by the game for the warp pipes that they have. You know, the world warp, you know, all of the regular pipes, exit pipes, they're all done by this. I suppose it's wrong to call this like a fully like that, because it's really hard to explain. Pipe entrance and exit code, it's actually in the player. This is simply just an easier way for the game to understand what is and isn't a pipe. So there we go. That's probably a bit better. Using this, you can probably make on-off pipes. That's kind of cool, but at the same time, you could probably do that already just by making the tiles inactive. I'm getting off topic. But yeah, all I did was add an entirely new one called wrong warp. So first off, it doesn't remove any of the arguments, because usually by default it'll store the co-x and co-y and then it'll remove everything else. We want everything else. So then if we go all the way down here to wrong warp, it'll get the direction and the direction exit from this fixed pipe function. This fixed pipe function is to solve a specific problem that I noticed with the lost levels, and actually, conveniently, there was quite a few that did this. Hold on, let me tell you a story. Let's say you were making an SMB style map pack and you didn't want to make any custom tiles, but you wanted a pipe facing down. You could do that. You could just use the upwards one and put it underneath and put it like upside down. But that completely contradicts the system that I set up by checking the pipe index. So this fixed pipe function is a really simple way of saying, if there's a tile in front of it, invert the output. So if the entrance is down and there's a tile above it, then it's actually an up pipe. So flip it and it'll flip the exit direction and the enter direction. This works pretty much perfectly. So that's all this does. And I really didn't want this function. I wanted it in here with the is pipe, but there's just not enough data at the time for that to really work. I would have to do a lot of work to get that to work. So I just decided, screw it, I'll do it when they create the pipe. So all this does is it flips it if it's being used in a way that I didn't intend. Simple. Sets up this little value variable, sets its t, sets its size because there's no size variation. And then it does something really weird. If Mario pipe exit ID and the ID is equal to the exit ID, then it'll set all of these variables. What's this? This is for when you exit a pipe. It was stupidly complicated, and it was really only designed for pipes that already existed. So I had to basically force the game to do it this way. And that's why it gets set to nil. This is me just overwriting what the game is meant to do and being like, actually, no, you're going to do it this way. And that's what this does. So this is basically just redirecting the game and getting it back on track because it doesn't understand what the fuck is a wrong warp and why have I got these random variables to pipes that don't even exist. So this is basically me saying, hi, no, give that to me. I'll sort that out. And was very much a hacky fix. And that's why it's so seamless, because I basically had to hack the game to do what I want. But anyway, that's it for wrong warp, basically. The rest is going to take place in the player now. Mario will enter a pipe. It'll get the T of wrong warp because they're entering a wrong warp pipe. And it'll basically, what it's storing here is the actual entity's data. So this is what has the direction and exit direction. So easy enough. And then, yeah, this is all just ignoring everything else and acting. It basically, what it's trying to do is it's trying to act like a regular pipe, but not have the data it needs to go somewhere. So all I did was overwrite that. So here it is, travel type equals one warp. And this is basically entirely stolen from animations. There's an animation that allows you to travel to a different sub area or different level instantly. And this is where all that data gets sent, like the Mario pipe exit ID. Perfect. So yeah, all it's doing is getting the data from the pipe and setting all the data on there. Perfect. And it works flawlessly. Probably not. And there's one last little part to this, and that's randomization. These are all just this. All it's doing right now is it's creating all the pipes, setting the X ID to 0 because, well, actually it's nil, and you go to enter it, and it's not going to work because it never created the pipe because the IDs were never set. And that is what this function down here is for. PR randomize. This is what actually does the pipe randomization. Originally it just randomly shuffled items, but I didn't like that. This never gets truly random enough for me. So I actually rebuilt the list from scratch. Set an empty list available, add all the indexes to the available list. And then while there's still at least a pair of available options, grab a random index and then grab another random index and swap their IDs. We'll set the X ID to the one and then set the other X ID to the other. And that's simple enough. It's relatively quick, and it's not going to be that slow when you add more pipes because it's literally looking over each pipe once. And it's actually looking at them only half the time because the other time it's already being indexed by another one. So it never gets checked. So basically this is only taking, so for every pipe in the map pack, half that, and that's how many iterations this list does, rounded down, because if it's an odd, then it's ignored. And that's why you can't enter them. And that's about it. That's the entire system. It doesn't sound that complicated. Actually, I'm joking. It sounds very complicated. And it took me a while, and I'm glad that it's done, and I can move on to other projects. I've got a new main channel video coming out hopefully next week. It'll be on the Love Jam 2026. And I'm hoping to do a video about that and talking about some of the challenges and hardships from that development, because that'll be cool. I'm stupidly excited to start producing content here. I know I quit quite abruptly. I did it for my health, and I'm just kind of glad to be back. And I hope you guys enjoy this new style of content. And yeah, that's about it. Goodbye.